of Bingo by Bingo, where I attempt to get an entire bingo line on one of my year-long challenges, the romantasy bingo board. I have already completed line 2 of this board, 1 line so far, but we're not doing line 1 yet because I'm waiting for a book to come out, a book to be released. But I've already completed line 2. If you haven't seen that vlog, I'll link it somewhere here. And now it's time to complete line 3. During my Tackling Timmy's vlog, I actually started the first book for this vlog, and that is Dire Bound by Sable Sorensen. This ended up on my TBR as a Patreon pick, and it was also on this year-long challenge. So I finished out my TBR challenge reading the first 76 pages of this book, and now I'm ready to dive in fully with all of you. This is for the prompt of Friend Rec, which my patron who put it in my Patreon jar was not the friend that recommended it. But you know what? It was like doubled up. So thank you to all the people who recommended this book. There were quite a few of you. Bree, Kelly put it in my Patreon jar. There's lots that have been telling me to read this book. So that is what we are going to do. Again, I'm already 76 pages in. So I'm actually going to start this with a little bit of an update because obviously I read a little bit of this in another vlog, but I was very mum's the word on it. I didn't say anything about it or how I was feeling about those 76 pages. And I could definitely comp this to Fourth Wing a tiny, tiny bit, but it is very different in a lot of ways as well. And I do think I prefer the writing style of this book than the writing style of Fourth Wing, although I did really like Fourth Wing, don't get me wrong, but I'm enjoying this a bit more. Meryl is our main character in this book, and Meryl's family is struggling in a lot of ways. Her father went off to war some time ago and never returned, and Meryl's mother is suffering from a mental illness and is very rarely lucid. So Meryl has taken on running this family, keeping everyone afloat financially, and also taking care of her younger sister. And she has a lot on her shoulders for a young woman. She is in the fighting pits trying to get money. She's quite skilled and is doing quite well getting money from that. But she is also very invested in her community. She doesn't feel like the government is taking care of the people in her community, and the children are being kidnapped from her community by the nabbers who are taking them across the border to be siphoned. And I don't know the full intricacies of that because I am only 76 pages into this book. But I am interested in finding out what that all entails politically as I go through the book. So one of her sister's friends is kidnapped. She starts teaching the children how to fight to help save themselves. But unfortunately, it's not enough to save her sister, and her sister is taken. And Mirren is like, how am I going to get my sister back? How can I get to the front to go over the border to get my sister back? So she actually joins the army in order to do that. And now that she's in the army, she's actually a part of these trials to bond with a darewolf, which is why I say it kind of gives me Fourth Wing vibes, because the trials really feel Fourth Wingy to me, although it's not dragons, it's darewolves, but it definitely has a very similar vibe. It didn't feel like Fourth Wing up until that point though, and that's why I'm saying I think I like this one better, because I really felt for Mirren in that moment. Also, Mirren questions a lot more at the very beginning than Violet does at the very beginning of Fourth Wing. And I really appreciate Mirren being like, I need to do this to get what I want, but I'm not buying into this political system that has kept me under its thumb for so long and has allowed these people to take my sister. Mirren has a boyfriend at the start of this book. Leo, I think is his name. And I actually really like Leo. I don't think he's probably going to be our love interest for the entirety of the book. I think that's much too easy. I cannot see it. I'm sure she meets someone in the army to which is our love interest. But I actually really liked him. So I'll be interested to see how we kind of leave that behind. Is it a love triangle? What kind of thing are we doing with the romance in here? I'm interested to find out. I do kind of think I've already kind of caught a glimpse of who the actual love interest is going to be. But I did like Leo. He was sweet. He loved her. He was kind of sweet. So I hope she breaks his heart, nicely, maybe. I don't even know if that's what's going to happen. It's only 76 pages in. I'm just going off what my vibes are at this moment in time. But I will say, I can usually call a 5-star pretty early. I'm not saying for sure this is going to be a 5-star. We have a lot of book that could change my mind. And obviously, now that we've left the village to which she's from and are now at this bonding trial situation, we've really shifted in the story, and I just got to that point. However, I do feel 5-star vibes off the 76 pages I've read so far. We'll see if that continues. But that is a good start because I feel like the last Bingo by Bingo, again, if you haven't watched it, go check it out. But I did not have a shining success with all 5 books. So to come into this one with 5-star vibes for this line, it's already like giving me high hopes that this line is going to be better than the last line. But again, we're only 76 pages in, so I'm going to get to reading, and I will chat more with you once I know more about the book. I feel like it's still so early days, and I've already covered so much in this book. There's been moments where I've almost been so emotional already, which is again why it's giving me 5-star vibes. The moment her sister is taken and Meryl realizes what has happened, I welled up. The emotion that Sable Sorensen put into that, it really makes Meryl feel so real and so vivid because you're going through all her emotions. She has anger at the beginning of the book at how the system is treating her. She has sadness and rage when her sister is taken, and she goes through a moment of actually being so stunned that she almost freezes. And then she has to come back to herself and be like, I need to fight. I need to go get my sister and become the Meryl that I know I can be, you know? I'm loving it. I'm already loving it. I feel like that's quite obvious. So let's see what the rest of this book has in store. This book is absolute perfection. The last time I felt this way about a fantasy romance was when The Moon Hatched. And that was my best book of 2024. So that is very, very, very high praise. This book is almost 600 pages. It's 22 hours long on the audio, and it doesn't feel it at all. I feel like I am flying through this book, and it's sheerly because I am loving every second of it. I have 0 critiques. I have no notes. None at all. My favorite part of this book is obviously Marin. Marin is my favorite thing about this book. I love a character like Marin. She is strong. She knows her mind. She's willing to look at everything going on around her and really question it and go, why are we doing it this way? Just because it's always been this way doesn't mean it's right. How does this serve me? How does it serve the people I care about? And really look at this system and go, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And she's also extremely sarcastic in that, which I absolutely love as well, because I am a super sarcastic person. My humor does lean towards sarcasm. So I always appreciate a character who is quite sarcastic with those people around her, but also in like her internal dialogue. It's extremely, extremely sarcastic, and I love that as well about Marin. So Marin is the main reason I'm loving this book, but the writing also, the Darewolves, I mean, come on, we're bonded with wolves. We have bonded with wolves, and Marin has bonded with a wolf, and that was not her main goal. Her main goal was to get to the front to save her sister. But now she has bonded, and she is going to have to get through these bonding trials in order to go to the front now with her Darewolf. And her Darewolf is Anasa, and Anasa is not so sure. Anasa is really not so sure about Marin. And I think that's because she kind of senses that Marin did not really want to be, bonded to her. But they're kind of starting to sort themselves out. Maybe, sort of. I think it kind of gives us an interesting look into the bonding of a human with a Darewolf, because we're seeing how it kind of needs to go both ways. And when both of them are not really willing to trust or commit to each other, what kind of happens? with that bond. Now that Marin is in the bonded city and in the place where she takes the trials to become a fully bonded warrior, she is really getting to see the juxtaposition of wealth in this society. She's come from a non-wealthy background. She is regular. They call her a commoner, honestly. And she is a regular person from a regular city and has not grown up in this affluent bonded city where the king lives and the bonded warriors and the bonded families. And she's seeing how big that divide is, and it is massive. And she is realizing that even the bonded warriors do not seem to have a full understanding of what the regular person goes through on a daily basis. And she is starting to question that and go, why don't you know what we're going through? You're supposed to protect us. You're supposed to be the ones keeping us safe, keeping my sisters safe. And you seem to not even know what's going on with the people that you're protecting. And that is quite upsetting to her and something she definitely is trying to shine a light on with those around her. When she first starts the bonding trials, she meets two twins. And I'm mentioning this because, first of all, we do have some found family aspects to this book, which is lovely. But we also have one of our characters being hard of hearing. And you know I love representation in a book. One of our twins is hard of hearing. She does read lips when she's having kind of a conversation with one or two people, and then does use sign language when she's in more of a crowd, when that is difficult. And I really like that as well, seeing that in the book and seeing how we're not vilifying her for her disability. And we're seeing her still become one of these wonderful, powerful, bonded warriors. And I love to see it. I love seeing the disability representation, and I love seeing it front and center in a book in another really strong female main character who is not letting something like being hard of hearing get in her way of the destiny to which she sees for herself. There was one reveal since I've last seen you, and I did not see it coming. I absolutely did not see this reveal coming. I didn't see it coming from a mile away. I was completely sideswiped by it, and I was like, excuse me? What? What is happening? How is this? What is, what? Like, that was my whole brain. My brain was just like, I'm sorry now. What? I don't get bought in by twists very often, but that one definitely got me. That one completely got me. And I was shooketh to my core. I think, about 300 pages left of this book, thereabouts. And I think I'm going to blink and it's going to be done. Because this is barreling towards a 5-star. I feel like I need to just sit here, look into the abyss, and process this book for a while, because truly it is my favorite book that I have read in a very, very, very long time. There were so many things that I saw coming, but like, I enjoyed the ride. There were some things I didn't see coming multiple times. Something would happen and I'd be like, excuse me? How is this happening? I wasn't expecting that. And it's going to be hard for me to talk about this book because I want to like dive into all the amazing aspects, but I'm keeping this spoiler free, so I can't do that. I can't go into the nitty gritty of it, but this book is fantastic. The politics that we eventually like weave through, I'm here for it. Marin, again, the shining star of this book is Marin and her sarcasticness, her ability to question, and at some points miss some things that I'm like screaming at her like we're watching a horror movie. You know when you're watching a horror movie and the people are going to go into the house and you're like, don't go into the house. There was moments where I was like, Marin, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. You're trusting the wrong people. Stop what you're doing. Like you can see it and you're just screaming at her and she doesn't see it. And you're like, could you notice? Could you see it? Like my emotions through this book were so heightened because I was so bought in. I was so there for every bit of it that I was like, okay, I'm along for the ride. I'm a part of this. I'm now in this training college. I want to be bonded to a werewolf. I want to help Marin find her sister. I want to know all the secrets and all the intricacies and I want to know it all. I want to know it all. And I'm here and I'm sat and sad things happen. Devastating things happen. I welled up at the beginning when her sister was taken. I welled up at a later point, which I won't go into. But there are like so many emotions in this book. So many. And I felt all of them. I felt them all. This book is a romantasy book. There is a significant romance in here. I do not think it's the romance that we're going to follow the whole time. I mentioned Lee. I even think I called him Leo at the beginning of this vlog, but I mentioned him. He's her love from her hometown, and we knew that that was probably not where we were going to stay, but we do see Marin kind of figuring it out in this book and trying to decide if that's where she should stay or is she going to fall for the hot tattooed man on a wolf? And, you know, let's be honest. We've read romantasy. She's going to fall for the hot tattooed man on a wolf. Like, we know Stark is the main love interest for this whole series. It's very, very obvious, but he's not really in this book. I mean, he's in this book. He's the main character in this book, but he's not, like, romantically involved with her in this book. It's coming. But if you like a yearny romance, I think you're going to really like their romance. I could see us yearning for a bit. Like, I don't know if we're going to dive right into Stark and her in the next book. I think we could even yearn a little bit longer. And I don't think I'm mad at that. Knowing what's going on, knowing everything that's happening, I'm okay with this romance being slow burn because there's a lot happening in the magic and in the plot. There's a lot happening. And I feel like we can even dive more into the magic. I mean, we know that her sister is taken by these siphons at the beginning of the book. They call them nabbers, but we kind of discover more that it's obviously with the war with the siphons. The siphons have magic. And we see a little bit of that, but we don't see a lot of it. And I think we can explore that magic more in the next book. We also see the werewolf magic and the magic that the bonded get when they are like bonded with a werewolf. And I even feel like we haven't fully discovered all of the layers to that either. So I can totally see that we are going to take the magic system that we've started in this book and expand on it and grow it. And even like pull apart this system, pull apart this world and grow within it. I feel like this world is really intricate and I've just scratched the surface in 570 pages. Like there's so much more. Thankfully, I don't have to wait that long for the next book in this series. I only have to wait a couple of months before Fury Bound comes out. And I'm so glad. I will be going right into that when it comes out because the cliffhanger on this book, I need to know. I need to know where we're going from here. And I'm nervous for some of my characters. And I want to see the romance build. And I want to see the world build. And I want to see the magic build. I'm here for all of it. If it's not clear, I'm giving this 5 stars. If that's not clear. I believe I've already told you that multiple times in every update. I'm like, it's giving 5-star vibes. It's giving 5-star vibes. It is officially 5 stars. We are starting this first bingo line off with a success. I was so excited to talk about this. I forgot to get the next book for this vlog. I forgot to get it off my shelves. But the next book for this vlog is Our Infinite Fates. This book is for ghosts and ghouls. And I do remember that when I picked this book, I was stretching. I was stretching the prompt. I wasn't exactly sure if it fully fit, but there was like talks of something in the synopsis that I was like, I can make this work. I can stretch and I can make this work, because I was really trying to pick from my physical TBR. So I am going to read that next. It is significantly shorter than this. This was 22 hours audio, 570 pages. I don't know how many pages the book is, but I do know the audio is only 11 hours for Our Imminent Fate. So it's basically half the size of this. It is a lot smaller, which I'm kind of glad to go into something smaller. And I don't know, I feel like, I hope I'm not in like a book hangover after this book, because I could be. I honestly could be. This book was so good. And I'm wondering, like, can anything live up to this? But also, it's so wonderful to start this vlog off with what could be. And I'm saying it now in January, my best book of the year, or at least on my best book of the year list. Like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Can I read 10 better books? I don't know if that's possible. I really don't. I don't know if that's possible. I don't think it is. I think this is going to be at least in my top 10. I'm saying it now. So we're starting the vlog off really high. We're going to see if the rest of these books can keep this train going. I hope so. I really hope so. But first, I actually have to go get the book, because I definitely forgot to grab it in my like haste and my excitement to talk to somebody about this book. And honestly, I wish I could talk to you more about this book. I have so many thoughts. I have so many things that I'd like to like in-depthly discuss. But again, spoilers. So I'm going to have to message my friends who have read this book and talk to them, because I need to decompress with words even more deeply about the happenings of this book. So yesterday I ended up reading for about 2 hours more, and 2 hours of Our Infinite Fates, and getting just over 100 pages into this book. This book, the concept is really different, and in theory, I like it. But there's just something about it that is keeping me just a little, pushed back from really sinking into this story. In this book, we follow Evelyn, and we're in her POV the entire time. Evelyn keeps dying right before her 18th birthday because of some sort of fate with Arden. And we don't know exactly why this is happening. We don't know why it keeps happening. Arden knows, but Evelyn doesn't remember. And I'm sure there's something about this curse that is keeping her from remembering. And he's not able to tell her. So they find each other in every single life. They're reincarnated. They don't remember that they're reincarnated until about the age of 8 or 9. They start getting their memories back. By the age of 18, they know. They know they're looking for each other. They know what's about to happen. They have this pull, this inextricable pull to each other. And they find each other, and they are mutually destroyed in various ways by that. They both die. They're both reincarnated. And they definitely have kind of a star-crossed, hopeless love story within that. They're not in love in every lifetime like their current person, because obviously they are Evelyn and Arden, but they're Evelyn and Arden reincarnated into other people. So like those people are sometimes in love, sometimes not, but their souls are like meant to be together. And I really do like the lyrical writing of this star-crossed love story, this fated souls that are meant to find each other, but because they find each other, it is disastrous, and there cannot be a movement forward for either of them. And in the current timeline, we are in Wales, and we are reincarnated into 2 different people. And Evelyn's sister Gracie has cancer. She has leukemia, and Evelyn is a match for her stem cell wise. It is almost her 18th birthday, and she's trying to get these stem cells, harvested from her body so that she can save Gracie before she goes. Her father in this timeline recently passed away. So her mother is barreling down a fate of potentially losing both her daughters. And Evelyn is trying to make sure that doesn't happen, and she only loses Evelyn and not Gracie, because Evelyn knows she's going to die. She dies in every lifetime at the age of 18. Now the process to get the stem cells has been pushed off, and she needs to live past her 18th birthday to reach the mark that she needs to reach to save Gracie. So she is trying to find Arden to convince him that they should like try and live past their 18th birthday this one time, even if it's just for like a week, so that she can at least save Gracie in this lifetime because she loves her sister. And you really feel for these characters a lot. You feel for them because they keep coming into these families and having new parents, new mothers, new siblings, and people in their lives that they care about. And they keep losing people over and over and over. And they know that. They remember the losses. And it's really quite sad. A lot of this is very, very sad. And there's a lot of things I'm liking about it. But the one thing I don't like, which is really not anything that I don't like particularly, it's just kind of keeping me from getting fully nestled into the story, is how the flashbacks of other lives are written into the book. I'm not a huge flashback girly. I don't mind it sometimes in contemporary romance. Like if we have a like second chance lover situation, sometimes that works for me. But I really like a story to be told kind of more linearly than jumping all around the timeline. And unfortunately, that's what we're doing. We are in the current timeline, and I love the current timeline with Gracie trying to find Arden. I'm really interested in that. And that is 99% of this book. Like it's most of the book. So that's fine. But every once in a while, we'll have a chapter to a past life and the moment to which they destruct, the moment to which they die, and what led to that moment. Did they kill each other? Sometimes that happens. A lot of times that happens. One of the times they're in war and they die as a result of being soldiers in war. So there's a lot of reasons why they can die, and we see kind of those different instances. And it does need to be there. It needs to be there because we need to understand that they do love each other and what this kind of perpetual cycle is leading us towards. So it needs to be there. I understand why it's there. I just don't know if I'm loving the way we keep jumping about. I don't know how else to do it though, either. Like, I think it kind of has to be that way for the book to work. So that's why I'm torn. I'm torn about this book because realistically, I'm enjoying it. I want to know what happens. I want to know why this keeps happening. But every time we do a past timeline, I'm like, ugh, okay, back we go. However, I like knowing the information that's in the past timeline. Make it make sense. I can't. It reads very quickly though, and if I get all the reading done today that I think I can do, because I have a pretty quiet day, I think I can actually just like finish this out. It reads very quickly. The audiobook is really easy to just listen to. So that's going to be my plans for today, is just dive in and see if I can finish the rest of Our Infinite Fates. With the elephant in the room of, does this fit the prompt I put it for? No, not really, barely, maybe with a tiny little pinky finger. The reason I put this for Ghost and Ghouls was there's a mention of 100-year-old devil in the synopsis. And that is shown in the prologue for like 0.1 seconds. And it does eventually play a role, kind of, sort of, maybe, barely, not really. And it's not really what this book is about. So no, I don't think it fits the prompt, but I put it in for that prompt. So we're going to use it for that prompt. We're not redoing the TBR. I've already read the book. We're counting it for the bingo. That's just what we're going to do. I think if you were really, really interested in reincarnation, you would find this book very, very fascinating. That is not a topic that I have exceptional interest in. I find it interesting, kind of, but it's not something that I look into or really have much thoughts about. And that made me not have a lot of thoughts about this book. I do think it was very, very slow. And the longer I read it, the slower it felt. The more we were just rehashing the same thing over and over. Yes, in different timelines, but it felt very, very similar every time. And I kept thinking, what's the point? Like, what is the point? Is it to get out of this, like, reincarnation circle that they're in? Like, what are we trying to get to at the end of this book? and it took a long time to get there. And then we got to the end of the book and it felt so rushed. I think we needed to get to the main plot of this book a little bit faster. We focused a lot on the characters, which I love a character-focused book. So, you know, this is coming from someone who loves focusing on characters. And I still felt it was a bit too repetitive, a bit too slow, and didn't really get to the point fast enough that I was interested in it enough to like be engaged with what was happening. I definitely started to get bored as I was reading this, and it just felt like I read it for a really long time, even though I didn't. It was very short. It probably took me 5 hours in total to read this entire book, but it felt really slow, even though it was short. And for all those reasons, I'm going to give it 3 stars. There were some good things about it. It wasn't that it was a bad book, and I do think some people would like this book. I just don't think, with the amount of flashbacks, where I'm not a huge flashback lover to begin with how slow it took to get to the point and how fast it was rushed at the end, I could give it any higher than a 3 star. So with that, we need to go on to the next book for this vlog, which I do know fits the prompt better than this one because people have assured me that it does. So that's fine. And that is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And I'm reading this for voices in my head. So there's some telepathic connections happening in this book. And that is why I'm using it for this prompt. Now, I am a little nervous going into this one because I have read Rachel Gillig before, actually just a couple months ago when I read Night in the Moth. And I did not love Night in the Moth. I gave it 3 star. It was very 3-star energy. However, I do think that people who liked Night in the Moth didn't love One Dark Window and vice versa. I think you like one or you like the other, and there is a stark difference in the 2 books. I'm not really sure what that stark difference is because I haven't read this one and I don't really remember why people were saying they liked one and not the other, but I do feel like that is what I've heard from most people. So that gives me hope for this book, that I may like it. I don't know how much reading I'm going to get to today, though, because it is a busy day. We are in the middle of redecorating our living room. We got some new bookshelves for up there that aren't really for my books. I do have some books up there, but they're more for, you know, other people in the family's books. And I just want to like decorate the top, get some cute decorations for the top. Last week, I bought a new lamp for one of them, but they're very plain. They're very bare, and they need a little bit of stuff on the top of them. So I want to go out and just kind of look, see what I find. I don't know really what I'm looking for exactly. So like I'll know when I see it, but I don't know right now. I also need to run to Staples and pick up a print job that I put in for a couple of days ago. Next week, the Land of Fairy Tales, my top tier members, Neverland, has a readathon. And it's Timmy's TBR-a-thon. We run this about 4 times a year. But for the new year, I decided to make the new board and kind of just update the board a little bit. So I needed a copy of the new board that I made so that I can start doing the rolls for that and playing that on Sunday. Today is Thursday. So I need to go pick that up and kind of see what my first roll is for that readathon. I don't know when I'm going to do my rolls, sometime between now and Sunday, but I need the board. So I need to pick that up. And then tonight is also Bones, because every Thursday, my members and me, we watch Bones. So I have 2 hours or 2.5 hours, depending on how long we get chatty, of a watch along tonight as well. So it's a busy day of not necessarily sitting here and reading, but I should be able to get some reading in. It's still early. I'm not leaving for a couple hours yet, so I might get some reading in before I head out on errands. But once I leave for errands, I feel like I'm just going to be like errands, dinner, Bones, bed. As expected, I got almost no reading done. I read like 60 pages of One Dark Window and immediately realized I was liking this a lot more than I liked Night in the Moth, like significantly more. So that was exciting, but I didn't get to really dive in. And this magic system is very, very intricate. And I feel like the world is very intricate. And there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of things going on. So I was really trying to focus and get my bearings in this book for a bit. This morning, I had to be mom chauffeur and take my son around to some activities. And I had time to like drop him off and then go to a coffee shop for about an hour and read there, which you would have seen B-roll of that by now. But that's what I did this morning. And I got a little bit further in One Dark Window because I am now 109 pages. I'm actually in the middle of a chapter because I had to run out, pick him up, and get going. And then I went to the bookstore and picked up the next book for this vlog because I think I'm going to get through a lot of this afternoon. I have a lot of time to read and I wanted to be prepared to go into the next book, which is Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. Look how gorgeous this book is. Absolutely beautiful. So I ran into the bookstore, grabbed this, and now I'm home ready to read. But I thought now that I'm 100 pages in, let's talk about this. It's really intricate. There's a lot going on, and I still think there's a lot I don't fully know the intricacies of. But there's a lot I do know. First of all, we're following Elsbeth. Elsbeth lives in a world where magic is very, very limited and is considered an infection, actually. So a lot of children were being infected by magic from the spirit of the wood or spirit wood. I forget the exact way it's phrased in the book. But anyway, the spirit of the wood was infecting children, and they would get a fever, which would infect them with magic, and they would become basically deranged, or at least that's what the ruling king is telling people. I'm starting to question that because Elsbeth did have this fever as a child. She survived the fever. Her family hid the fact that she had a fever and therefore hid the fact that she has magic. Her family actually thinks she just survived and didn't get magic, but she did. And she has something called the nightmare creature living in her head. And it talks to her. It tells her things. And it helps her see things called provenance cards. There is a myth, and again, I don't know exactly how much of this myth is true or how much of it I believe, that the Shepherd King, a king from centuries ago, talked to the spirit of the wood and basically said, please do not keep infecting our children. And they came to some sort of agreement against how magic was going to be. And if the king could gather all 12 provenance cards, he could put an end to this infection. And he's never been able to do that. The current king is trying. One card away, actually. Very, very close. But these provenance cards have magic. And that's why I'm saying magic is also kind of limited to the wealthy, because that's who has these cards. And each card gives you a different power. There's the nightmare card, which Elsbeth is like, her magic is from the same like type of magic that is the nightmare card, because obviously that's who she speaks to. And she is given the ability to see these cards. So people like have them in their pocket. People don't know who have all the cards. And there's multiples of different cards. There's one card that there's only one card there's only two, one card there's only three. Kind of is like the 12 days of Christmas in a way. Like it's like there's 10 pipers piping, but there's 10 cards of whatever. 9 lords a leaping, but 9 cards of whatever, if that makes sense. Or at least that's like what I thought of it when I heard it described. I was like, okay, I get it now. Anyway, the king needs one of each card, and he kind of gives the wealthy other like duplicate cards to keep them in line in this like organization. Anyway, nobody really knows who has what cards, and she can see them glowing out of like pockets or off people if they're using the cards, because each card has a different color. She knows this. I actually don't know if anybody else knows this, because I don't know if anyone else can see the color of the cards, but she can, and she can see the color of the cards. Anyway, she's kind of been in hiding with her aunt and uncle. She doesn't live with her father and her stepmother and her stepsisters because of this fever and them just kind of wanting to distance themselves from her. She's stopped on the road going to her uncle's house by 2 highwaymen, and they threaten her to get her uncle's cards because they are trying to gather cards. And we don't know the full extent of this, But very shortly into this book, we find out that they were not really highwaymen. They were the prince's nephew, or the king's nephew, I should say. It's right here in the synopsis, so I just had to look. And his name is Raven. And Raven, I do believe, is our love interest. And I think he's operating outside of what the king wants. And I'm not really sure why. Again, I don't necessarily trust the king in the system. I'm wondering how much of the system is to like hold people down and keep magic limited, or whether it is like dangerous. I don't know. I'm questioning that. And I'm wondering if Raven is also questioning that. And he has found out about Elsbeth's magic. So they are somehow going to team up. And Elsbeth doesn't really know what his plan is or what he's trying to do. I actually think I'm about to find out. I think I'm like on the precipice of finding out what his plan was when I had to put the book down. So this afternoon, that is where I'm going to be going. But I am loving this. I'm loving the way it's written. I'm really fascinated by the intricacies of this magic, because I've just explained it to you, but like I've just hit the surface. I've just hit the surface of what this magic system is, and I find it quite fascinating. And then when we come to like at the start of each chapter, there's like the cards. Hold on. Let me find one to show you. There's like the cards at the front that kind of tell the tale of this myth around the cards and the magic of this spirit wood and how we've gotten to the system that we've gotten to. And sometimes that's told in rhyme. And I don't know, some about that really works for me. And sometimes the nightmare talks to her in rhyme. And again, something about that really works for me. And there's an essence of this. And I can't really put my full finger on it other than like how the story is told with the times that it's in rhyme. Also, we have Elsbeth with her secret, her stepmother, who's kind of like an evil stepmother a little bit, her stepsisters, which are twins. Something about this all, something about it all is giving me fairy tale vibes. It isn't a fairy tale retelling. It isn't. It's very much its own story with its own magic system and its own things. But the way it's written is making me feel fairy tale-esque, which, you know, I love that. So there's a lot of things about this that I'm really, 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 really enjoying. I'm not saying this is a 5-star yet, but I'm not saying it's not. I just had to film the most unhinged book tag here on BookTube, which is the reread, rewrite, and burn book tag. And I did it with all my 5-star reads from last year. So I feel like I had to make horrifying choices with all of my favorite books. And it actually hurt my soul. So I'm kind of glad to just come here and talk to you about a new 5-star read that I have for this year. Last year, I only had 25 5 stars. I've already had 3 in January, 2 of them in this vlog. Direbound, 5-star, and now One Dark Window, 5 stars. Easily 5 stars. This book is so intricate. And I did feel like if I blinked for like 2 seconds, I would have to reread those paragraphs, because the magic system is so deep and there's so much going on in this world, in this magic system, that I wanted to inhale it all. I wanted to take it all in. I wanted to know every little detail. And the book was giving. The book was giving it all. It wasn't leaving you lost. It wasn't just touching on things a little bit and never giving you the full picture. You got all the details. How this came into being, how this magic came into being, how the cards were created, why the cards were created, who is trying to get the cards, why they're trying to get the cards, what is the reasoning, what is the motivation of all these characters, why different characters are working towards different motivations than other characters. And you're getting all of it. And it's so intricate. There's politics involved, because obviously the king and the princes want to get the cards for one reason. Another group, which is Raven, again, I said there's a reason it seems that he's trying to get the cards. We're following why they're trying to get the cards. And there's some politics going on within that, which, you know, I love politics. The magic is so interesting, how each card can be used. And at first you get kind of like a brain dump of all these cards and you're like, okay, that's a lot. What exactly do they all do? And then as you go through the book and you see the cards getting used, you get more and more understanding of how these cards are used and what kind of magic it gives the user. We meet more infected, like Elsbeth, who have magic from this fever and who weren't caught and who weren't put to death as children and who have lived and are hiding with this magic and what their different magics can do and what that means long term. We find out more about Elsbeth's infection, about what it means to degenerate, which is what happens to the people with this fever. And we get all these things and we just keep getting it and 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 getting it. And the whole time I'm like, yes, I want it all, give it all to me. And I was just so fascinated with this book. I couldn't look away. The twists got me. I am very, very rarely blindsided by twists. And in both Direbound and this book, I was blindsided both times by the twists in these books. And claps for that. Because when you're doing something that only you have done, it makes it hard to see the twists. I feel like a lot of books lean into tropes, which make it really easy to see those twists. So I'm seeing really unique stories in both of these books. Direbound being a lot more tropey than this one, I would say this is really a unique story amongst itself. The magic is unique, the story is unique, everything about it is very, very unique, but it has a fairy tale vibe, which I did tell you in my last update. And I really just loved it so much. The only thing that I could say about this that maybe would be a negative for some people, it was not a negative for me, is that the romance, not a big part of this book. It is barely there. It's there. Elsbeth, Raven, sure, there's a romance in this book. Would I call this a romantasy book? No, I wouldn't. Maybe that's a hot take. This is a fantasy book with a romance in it. It really is. It's not a romantasy book. I'm sorry. It's really, really not. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me on that, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree. And I think in a world of genre blends taking over literature, it is hard to know where to put books. And is there enough romance to call it a romantasy? Is there enough? Sure, we're nickel and diming books, and that's okay. For me, this is a fantasy book with a romance in it, and I do not think every fantasy book that has a romance in it is a romantasy. If you take the romance out of this book doesn't change. It really doesn't. You lose a smut scene, but the general plot and the general overall feel of this book doesn't change. And for me, that is a sign that I would call this a fantasy book and not a romantasy book. However, I am dying to get into the sequel. It's just a duology. I can knock it out so quickly, but I don't have time in this vlog because it's not the next book for this vlog. It's just not. I have to go into the next book for this vlog, which I already talked about when I bought it just a couple days ago, or yesterday. When did I buy this? 2 days ago now? Yeah, 2 days ago now. And that was Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. And I'm trying to remember what this is for on the bingo board. I 100% looked prior to coming down here, and my brain is not coming up with the information. Forbidden romance. That's what it is. I have this down for forbidden romance. Rainy is the reason that I'm reading this book. Now, Rainy and I do not always agree on books, so just because Rainy loved it doesn't mean that I will. So I'm definitely going into it with that in mind. However, there is a section of romantasy where we do tend to agree, and that is dark academia. This is dark academia. So I think that is one of the reasons she thinks I am going to really like Nocticadia. We are about to find out. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to dive into it today. I have only about 2 hours of reading today available to me. It is a busier day, so I don't know how much of this I will get done in 2 hours because it is chunky. It's chunky. This one's going to take me a couple of days. I'm not going to read this nearly as fast as I read One Dark Window. Or like, what other book did I read? Our Infinite Fates. This is much bigger than both of those books. This is more like Direbound sized. This is bigger than Direbound. It's more pages than Direbound. The audiobook is shorter. So it depends on what you mean by longer. But this one's going to take me some time. This one's going to take me a minute. But I will come back to you, throughout the book a couple of times probably since it's so chunky and let you know how it's treating me. Can we get a third 5-star? What do you think? Do you think we can get a third 5-star? I feel like that's a lot to ask, but you know what? Bring it on. preface this, everything that I say, reminding you that this is a dark romance. And that's really important because we go into dark romances differently. I would not recommend every dark romance to every single person because everybody's triggers are different. And what your base level line of like how dark you're okay going is different for every person. However, I am on a 5-star ride at this moment. I am on a 5-star ride. And right now, this is feeling like a 5-star. It's actually feeling like my favorite book I've read for this vlog, which is extremely high praise because we've had amazing books in this vlog. I never have this many 5 stars in like a month, let alone in the same video. Like this just doesn't happen. I've had such great luck with the books I chose for this line of the bingo. I chose well. My friends have given me excellent recommendations and have led me to the moment of so many favorite books. This is dark academia. It's around like some sort of disease, which I really do find fascinating. You know, I kind of like the macabre feel in certain books, and that's what I'm getting. It's very gothic in its vibe, which I do really like as well. So there's a lot of things that immediately, like looking at this book, are like, yes, I would like this. I don't mind where the romance is going. It's going to be student teacher, and that doesn't bother me in a dark romance. It may for you, it may be something you don't want to read. For me, it's fine. She's an adult. It's a college. She's in her 20s and he is maybe 30, 35. So there is an age gap, but it's not so large that I feel uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So for me, it's fine. Again, everyone would have to kind of like choose that for themselves. I haven't gotten to the romance yet, but I can definitely see where it's going and where it's going to be. Rainey originally recommended this to me when we did our 5-star project with Exorcism of Fairies, because she had already read this and reread Exorcism of Fairies. And she kept saying that the things I liked about that were done better in Nocticadia and were just more in depth. And I 100% agree with that. This whole disease that we see at the very start of this book and how we carry kind of researching that throughout the book is very, very fascinating. It's extremely gross. So if you don't like gross things, again, maybe not for you because it's disgusting. It's absolutely gross, but I am here for it. So at the start of this book, we meet Lilia, and it's about 4 to 5 years before she goes to this university. Her mother is very, very sick with a disease she knows nothing about. Nobody can really tell them what this disease is, and they are just unsure. Her mother locks herself in the bathroom on the night of her death, and worms come out of her. Black worms come out of her. A parasite, might I suggest, but one that no one knows what it is. The coroners cover this up. They say that's not what happened. They say she commits suicide, but Lilia knows what she saw. She's like, I saw the worms. Why are we ignoring the fact that I saw these worms? Now cut to 4 years later, and she is at a community university. She is struggling to kind of stay afloat. She's working a part-time job. She's trying to keep herself and her sister in school. Her stepfather, Connor, is somewhat helping. Not really. Her home life is not great. And her, professor wants her to write about a fictional disease. Since she has seen a disease that everyone is telling her is not real and that she hallucinated these worms, she writes that down. She writes that disease for this fictional project. That professor sends her paper to a professor at Dracadia. That's the name of the university, Dracadia University, which is on this tiny island off the coast of Maine. And they are studying this disease, this fictional disease that she knows isn't fictional, but everybody covered it up. And they're studying it. It's called Noctisoma. That's what it's called, Noctisoma, and they're studying it. So they give her a scholarship to come to the school because they were like, how do you know about this first and foremost? How do you know? But also you seem to have really close connections with the person you wrote about, and that could help us study this disease. She gets put in the class of the main person doing the research on this disease, who is Dravik. Is that his name? They call him Dr. Death, and that's what the students call him. But yeah, Dravik, that's his name. And he is a very handsome professor. He's very secretive. He's definitely extremely morally gray. So again, dark romance, lots of things going on. I do think I can foresee where the romance is going to some extent. I do think it might be kinky from what has kind of been shown to me already. We'll see. I'm not sure, but I can kind of see where it's going as someone who has read a fair amount of this type of romance in my time. And I'm loving the atmosphere and the descriptions, as gross as they are. I'm loving it. The secret societies that are kind of surrounding the investigation of this disease. You know, I love a good secret society. You know, I love a dark academia book. There's literally nothing about this that I'm not loving. I have no notes. Every time I sit down to read it, I feel like I read 50 pages and it feels like I just blinked an eye. I am almost 200 pages into this book. I'm on page 187 and I am absolutely flying. Chapter 24, flying through this book and adoring every single second of it. But please check your triggers. Again, I've mentioned a few of them in this. If, you know, pandemic or disease literature, you're not ready for it, fair. Like, I get that. We've all just been through one. So like, I can see why that would be a reason not. Again, we have a forbidden romance, which is why I picked this book. And I do think once we get into the smut, it's going to be significantly smutty. We'll see. But so far, I'm absolutely adoring this book. And again, I have a great full day that I can read today. I have reading sprints with my members tonight at 4 o'clock. And before that, I'm going to go upstairs, make a little recipe so that I have a snack on sprints later. I'm going to try the new viral cheesecake recipe that's going around on TikTok, which is not really like much of a recipe. It's Greek yogurt with Biscoff cookies shoved in it. You leave it for like 6 to 8 hours and it makes the cookies like soft and it becomes like a cheesecake. So like literally I'm going to go up and make it now so that it's ready to have on sprints, like as my snack tonight while we're on sprints, while we're reading, while we're chatting. I'm going to give that a try because it looks good. It looks interesting. We'll see if it actually tastes like cheesecake. Every time I see like a viral recipe, I'm like, but does it? But like, I need to try it. I need to give it a try. I went and bought Biscoff cookies yesterday when I went to the grocery store. And it was so funny because I went there and there's always Biscoff cookies. We live in Canada. They're not hard to get. And there was like none. There was like 2 packages left on the shelf. So clearly the TikTok trend has hit my local grocery store and there was a run on Biscoff. That's what I can tell. There was like a clear run on the Biscoff cookies. Everybody needed to buy them with the Greek yogurt. So I'm going to go make that now. And then I think I'm going to dive right back into Nocticadia. I don't even have a lot of like admin to do today. I have to make a thumbnail, but like that's it. I should be able to get a very big chunk read. I don't know if I'll finish it today. It's a very chunky book. She's chunky and I don't necessarily want to like fly through it too quickly. But I think if I get a good chunk read today, I can also finish it tomorrow. I think that's going to be the shout. We'll see. I could change my mind. I could binge the whole thing today. It really depends on how the day goes. And if I have any sort of distractions that I'm not anticipating, which do happen, things happen. But Nocticadia, sprints, and trying a viral recipe sounds like a great way to spend a Tuesday. This book, the more I become absolutely obsessed with this book. It is definitely the best book I've read all year. which is insane because sometimes it's absolutely disgusting. I was reading it on Sprints last night, and there was a point where everyone was like, why does your face look so concerned? And my face looked concerned because the descriptions of what was happening with these worms, with this disease, with this pathogen was disgusting. It was absolutely gross. And I was like, ew, but like, yes? I don't know how to explain it. I feel like when you can describe something in such vivid detail that I am sat, I am seeing it, I am feeling creepy crawly in my skin because it's so gross, but yet fits within this dark romance so well. Like, what? Like, how? Like, yes, please. I don't know. The way this is written is just so perfect for me. And again, I think it's the atmosphere, it's the description that is what's really like putting it ahead of every other book I've read recently. And you know, I have read some amazing books recently, so that is high praise. I am now 54 chapters into this book. I'm definitely going to finish it out today. I'm going to. I am doing nothing else until I finish this book out because I need to know what happens. This is a standalone fantasy novel. So there's nothing to come after. We're completing the entire story in this book, which probably does explain the size. Although realistically, I have read first books in the series that are bigger than this. It's actually smaller time-wise than Direbound. More pages, but smaller audio. So either they talk faster or there's more dialogue, so it takes more pages, but is actually less words. I don't know which. But anyway, it's actually smaller than that. So even though it's quite a chunky book, I think because it is a standalone, it makes perfect sense. I think if you cut anything from this, it would feel like something was missing, but right now it's perfection. And we have a super slow burn romance. As you would expect with a forbidden romance, you can't just like drop you right into that, or you feel like, even for me as someone who doesn't mind a dark romance, this feels icky. You need to build it so that the forbiddenness still works. Do you know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean. Anyway, you have to build it. And we just got to it like 3 chapters ago, maybe 4. Like it took like 350 pages to get to the actual romance starting. And by then I was like, come on, the yearning and the banter. And I was so ready. I was so ready for these two to finally like get together. I was primed and ready. And it's so good. Like, I'm so ready to see the relationship flourish. And again, I'm interested to see how we wrap this up and what is the conclusion. There's so much going on here and there is so much to wrap up. I feel like the next 100 to 150 pages is really going to take me through it because we have to deal with this disease and kind of wrapping up the study and whatnot that we are going through. We have the romance. And then we have a few mysteries. Each of our characters has something they want to learn about. Hers being her mother's death and kind of like connecting how her mother got infected with this pathogen. Him, another thing that I'm not going to talk about because I'm 99% sure it's not in the synopsis and we catch it real late. But he is trying to figure out something for himself that has to do with this pathogen as well. And some things that happened in his childhood and in his life that connect to like living on this island. So there's some things that are definitely going on that we all need to wrap up. And I cannot wait to find out how. But I am actually a little bit sad. Like I love that this is a standalone because I'm not starting another series. Like I love that aspect because I have a lot of series going on and doing this bingo board. I'm starting a lot of series. So, you know, that's a problem into of itself. But I'm kind of sad there's not another book because I love this book so much and I love these characters so much that I'm sad that when this ends, it ends. I'm definitely going to need to try another Carrie Lake book. This is my first one and I am definitely going to have to try another. I know Anathema is out there and I've heard pretty good things about that one. But if you have recommendations of like where to go with Carrie Lake, because I know this is like in the middle of their backlist. It's not the furthest back. It's not the newest, like it's right in the middle. So can you let me know which one you would recommend, knowing that I loved this one and like why I loved this one? Much appreciated. But I'm going to finish this. I will talk to you when I'm done. And it's going to be 5 stars. Like, nothing is going to change, but I'll come tell you about it. I'll come tell you more of why I loved it. I'll come gush some more, but it's going to be 5 stars. Like, there's nothing that could change that at this point. Office today because I just finished filming Timmy's TBR. I finished filming that, and then I figured I would give you an update on Nocticadia because I did finish that yesterday on my members Land of Fairy Tales sprints. We had our weekly sprints yesterday. This week is a lot of sprints with being at readathon week, but we had our weekly all tier sprints yesterday, and during that time I was reading Nocticadia. And normally I can keep a pretty straight face when I'm reading a book. Like, I don't really get too expressive when I'm reading a book. This book, the last 150 pages, I was holding my head in my hands. There was even one point where I like lifted my shirt and hid behind it like this because I was so terrified for what was happening. I was so angst filled. I was emotionally protecting myself with my sweater. Like, that is what was happening. And my members were watching me and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And every time we'd come back to have a chat, I wouldn't even be able to talk. Like, I would be so gobsmacked by what had happened that I couldn't even express myself properly on sprints because I was just processing everything that happened. So much happens in the last 150 pages of this book. And that makes sense. With it being a standalone novel, you had to wrap up a lot of the mysteries. You had to wrap up the romance. You had to leave us feeling settled with what happens. And I definitely feel settled. I feel like I got all the answers I wanted. I feel like I was just holding on for dear life and live, laugh, loving every single moment. Gross things would happen and I'd be like, ugh, disgusting, yuck, but like, yes, a way to describe that for me. Lovely things would happen, like heartwarming things would happen and I'd be like, oh, and then surprising things would happen and I'd be like, what? Like, it was a lot. It was a lot. It very much solidified this as a 5 star. And honestly, I'm going to say this now. I don't know if any book can beat this as my favorite book of the year. I cannot foresee any other book making me feel the way I felt reading this book. I just was along for the ride and I was here and I was so invested, and the descriptions and the writing and the vibes and the romance and the character work, everything slotted into place. The dark academia vibes, you know I love dark academia, and this gave it all. It was dark, it was gothic, it dripped with atmosphere and setting, and the romance was great too. Like, every single thing about this, I have no notes. I have nothing that I would change. I was so invested. I was the most invested. I don't actually remember ever feeling this way about a book. I can't remember a book that has made me feel this way. When I read Direbound earlier in this vlog, I compared it to the feelings that I had when I read When the Moon Hatched. I didn't even feel this way about When the Moon Hatched. Like, I loved that book. I am obsessed with that book. I'm so excited to read the sequel this year, but I didn't feel this way about it. Like, I can't remember a book that I felt this way about. So that's why I'm saying this could really be my best book of the year, because the way it made me feel and the way it took me on the journey puts it like top tier. Honestly, top tier. Now, also on those sprints yesterday, after I gave this 5 stars, after I gave it 5 stars with my whole chest, I needed to do a roll for the readathon because we are in the middle of the week-long Timmy's TBR-a-thon readathon with my members. And I was really hoping that whatever I would get would work for the last book for this vlog, as the first roll I did worked and I got Nocticadia on. And I was really hoping, and it did. So I am going to be reading Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I don't even think I have the card down here for when I did my roll for Timmy's, but it was for a bingo board prompt is what I ended up getting. And of course, this is literally what I'm filming right now. So that couldn't have worked out any better. The fates were with me. The fates were like, yes, continue the ride that you are on with this vlog. This 5-star ride that I'm on, this has never happened to me. Like, I cannot even get over how amazing the books have been in this vlog. I cannot get over it. And I know this is going to be a win because it's Rebecca Ross. It's the prequel to Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, which I read last year. I gave both of them 4 stars. And if I was going to like nitpick, I liked Ruthless Vows a little bit better. I liked seeing more of the gods timeline than I did of the magical like typewriter timeline. Although again, I gave both 4 stars and I really liked both. This, we're going back in time. And I think we're learning more about the gods and really setting up this world in this book. I think that's what we're doing. I don't know. I've only read the first chapter at this point. I read it last night just to kind of like get into the book, but I read 1 chapter. Like, I haven't read nearly anything, but I think that's what we're doing. And since that was the aspect I loved the most in Ruthless Vows, I expect this to really be a book that I enjoy. And even if it's not a 5-star, I think it's going to end on a really good high note for what is probably my most successful vlog ever with books. I am literally about to run out the door, and I will tell you where I'm going in a minute, but I wanted to talk to you about Wild Reverence before I do. I got to, where did I even get to? Chapter 28. They're in Roman numerals, so it took me a second to do that math. On chapter 28, page 188. And this surprised me when I started this book because I wasn't liking it. The first like 60 pages, I was really not interested in Matilda and her story. And I wasn't connecting with these characters. And I was trying to put my finger on why, but I was trusting the process. And I think had this been an author I hadn't read from before, this could have been a DNF like really early on. But because I knew Rebecca Ross, I was like, let's give it a second. Let's at least give it 100 pages. And I'm glad I did because after about 60 pages, I started to gain some investment. The story started to really sink in on what the plot was, and I got more interested. Enough to continue reading. Not enough to say this is my favorite Rebecca Ross by any stretch of the imagination, but enough to want to know the story. We follow Matilda in this, who is the child of 2 gods, one underworld god and one skyward god. So she is technically of both realms. And she has the magic of being a herald to deliver messages throughout the different realms, because being able to be a part of both realms gives her the ability to go to both realms. And therefore that is her magic. And we see her learning about her magic as she goes through her young life. And that was fine. We met all the different gods, and that was fine. We saw a little bit of like politics of the gods, and that was fine. But one thing that really caught my attention around the 60-page mark was her fascination with one of the mortals, who she is seeing in dreams, because she can also enter into like the dream realm, if that makes sense. So she connects with Vincent as like a teenager, a child, a teenager. They're both children and teenagers, and they kind of like grow up knowing each other. But then they have like 13 years where they aren't talking through dreams. Things happen to both of them. They sever their connection, and now they are coming back together. She needs to deliver a message to him, and he needs her help trying to keep his kingdom afloat. And that is the storyline I'm the most interested in. I think the main problem with this book, which is very much maybe a me problem, maybe it would also be a you problem, I don't know, is that the god system is clearly based off Greek mythology, but it's a fictional god system. So it is like a retelling, but it's not. And I feel like we're in this weird middle ground of like it is Greek mythology and it's not. And I think I would either like it to be a Greek mythology retelling or its own story with its own system and building your own like god system and building your old world. I don't think I'm thrilled with this in between that we're in. And I love a retelling, you know I do, but I'd almost rather just have it be a retelling than this middle ground we're in. Something about this middle ground is keeping me from really investing in the story, really investing in the characters, because I keep trying to think of the characters as new characters, but they have so many similarities to Greek mythology characters that I'm having a hard time with that. Even after the first 60 pages, I'm still having a hard time sinking into really loving this story for whatever reason. And the second thing, which is definitely a me problem, is that I did read a Greek mythology retelling in August that is extremely similar to this one. I do think the love story is going to take a different turn, because in that one, we have a man that eventually does like go rogue and kidnap the goddess to become his wife. I don't think that's where we're going in this one. I do think her and Vincent are in love and have probably a beautiful love story throughout this. But it is really similar to Queens of Themyscira for me, which I read in August. And that was a Greek mythology retelling. And I think that's why I'm really seeing the similarities and why I just wish it was one or the other. So having a story that was so similar, I'm like, but it's that story, but it's not, but it's that, if that makes sense. That story is, what's the name of the goddess? She's one of the Amazonian princesses of the god of war. Hegida? I could be saying that wrong. Hegida and Theseus. Again, may have said both of those wrong, to be honest. But that is the story that we're following in that book. And I feel like I'm just reading that Greek mythology story, but it's not a retelling. I don't know. I don't know. I'm struggling with that a little bit. I really am just struggling that I want it to be a retelling, or I want a brand new fictional world. And there's nothing wrong with having a middle ground. It's just, for me, the middle ground isn't hitting. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not hating it, but I'm really struggling to really fully immerse myself in this story. But I'm going to keep going. I'm not DNFing. I'm going to keep going. I'm interested enough that I kind of want to know what happens from where I just left off. Something pretty major just happened, and I kind of need to know where we go from there. But that's where we're at. Anyway, I need to leave. That's what I was going to say. Oh, actually, before I do that, I did realize that I forgot to tell you what bingo board prompt this was. I told you how I was using it for my readathon this week, but I didn't tell you what bingo prompt it was for the bingo line that we're working on. And I'm using this one for Book Talk Hype, because obviously Divine Rivals, Ruthless Vows, the series, very hyped over on Book Talk. So anyway, that's what I'm using it for. But where am I going? Yesterday, I was on the Instagram, as one does, and I saw that a donut place that I love, that I adore, is closing on Sunday. They're closing both locations, and I was so sad. I've been noticing so many of our indie stores closing in this area, and it's making me so sad. Like, my favorite coffee shop just closed where I buy my K-cups. This is now closing. I'm like, excuse me? I know the economy is really hard, so like, I get it, but it's making me really sad that they're having to close. And I feel really bad for those business owners, because obviously that's a huge hit, and I do really feel really sad. So I wanted to go and get donuts one last time before they closed. So today is like the only day that I have time to do that. So we're going to get in the car, we're going to grab donuts and have specialty donuts one final time before they close. So what a difference a day makes, but actually what a difference an hour makes. I gave this one more hour yesterday. I was enjoying it the day before enough after that 60-page mark to continue, but when I picked it back up again, I couldn't sink into it. I just couldn't. And the issues that I had the day before were like being exasperated in the next day. And I was on sprints, and I said, I'm going to give it one sprint. I'm going to give it one singular sprint. If it cannot catch me, I am giving up, because this year I am going to continue DNFing because I just don't want to read books I'm not enjoying for the sake of reading books. And I do find it harder to DNF series or authors I have enjoyed before, because I don't know, I'm just like, I should like this. I should be enjoying this. I've enjoyed this series. I've enjoyed this author. Like, my brain is like trying to rationalize not DNFing. But like, that's silly. That's silly. And we just need to release it for those who do love it. And I am not that person. I read to chapter 35. I was just about to start it, which is 239 of the pages. I don't even know how many pages I read in that hour. 40, maybe 40. And nothing was capturing me. I was just not engaged in these characters and this story. And I was just so checked out, and I was just listening to the audio for the sake of listening. I was following along in the book. I was immersion reading, but like, I was really just listening for the sake of listening. I wasn't caring. I wasn't engaged. I wasn't invested. And there's no point in doing that. I do think maybe had this book been smaller, because this is much larger than the other two books, I would have finished it. Maybe, because by this point I would have only had like a couple of hours left. So maybe if I would have just had a couple hours, I would have just pushed through. But I have like 6 hours at my reading speed left in this book. I have like 50% of the book, over 50% of the book left. Like, I just couldn't rationalize continuing. So we are going to have, I believe, our second DNF of this project. Again, DNFs are counting for the bingos, so it does complete the line. We do have our second bingo. And I will say, even though we're ending on a DNF, this has been a very, 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 very successful bingo. Like, wow, 3 5-stars in this video. And honestly, 2 books that I could potentially see being like best books of the year, like in my top 10. And maybe all 3. Like, I don't want to discount One Dark Window, but of the 3, I definitely, like, if I had to rate them, it's Nocticadia, Dire Bound, and One Dark Window. But like, I loved all 3 of those books. And maybe that's also a part of this, where this book is just okay, and it's very much just okay. It would be a 3-star, like, for sure. There's nothing wrong with this. I just don't care. And I think because I've just had so many fabulous reads, my baseline right now of like tolerance of a just okay book is much lower than maybe it would have been had I not been coming off some amazing reads. But either way, I'm just not wanting to read this right now. Also, I just realized you can see all these wrapped books. These are for the next vlog I'm about to start right after this one. I'm doing a wrapped book vlog. You will see it up and coming. You will see it soon. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this bingo line. We have completed another bingo on this bingo board. 2 bingos down, 3 more to go. Will I actually complete a year-long challenge? I mean, it's only January. It doesn't end until November. I feel like I am on the way to actually finishing this fairly quickly. If you enjoyed this video and are excited to see what the next bingo line has in store, make sure you hit subscribe. I'll have lots of content coming out in between, but I will be having another bingo line coming to you soon. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this video but have nothing to say down in the comments, leave me I always just pick whatever's on the last book. Leave me like a flower emoji for the flowers on Wild Reverence. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.